Hey BookTube, it's time for a wrap-up. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and I thought I would tell you about the sci-fi and fantasy books that I read in September. It pretty much ran the gamut from I hate this book to I cannot believe how much I love this book. So I'm going to start with the ones I didn't like the most, and I'm going to go to the ones I loved. So I'm going to begin with Love in the Time of Global Warming. This is by Francesca Leah Block, and it is narrated on audio by Julia Whalen. Julia Whalen was pretty good, actually. I go hot and cold on her, but I really liked her in this particular book. I thought that what bothers me about her is her lower range for male characters. They tend to all sound the same, but in this case, it was okay. I don't know, it kind of worked. This is a retelling of Homer's Odyssey, and there are a lot of references to Homer's Odyssey made throughout the story, but it is set in a post-apocalyptic U.S. where global warming has pretty much decimated everything. And, you know, I got a little over halfway through this book, and I just thought, I don't care about these characters, and I don't care about this story anymore, which is very unusual for me because post-apocalyptic stories are really, you know, they really appeal to me. I don't know, there just wasn't enough survival, and the characters just weren't interesting enough to really just keep me, you know, with the story. I don't think I want to give up on this author because I have heard from people that I trust that she has a very lyrical and beautiful way of saying things. So I have some other books by her, and I'm probably going to try those, but this one, no, just didn't work. I ended up DNFing it, and because I got over halfway through it, I ended up giving it 1 star. Chasing the Stars by Malorie Blackman was narrated on audio by Georgina Campbell and Matthew Morgan. I had a lot of problems with this book. I really, really wanted to love this book. So a couple of reasons why, actually more than a couple, but several reasons why. And the first of them has to do with the narration. Now, I think that I would have a different opinion of this book if I were British, because the two narrators are Brits, and the way that they phrase things is, I think, in a vernacular that I just don't get because I'm not around that all the time. I had a problem with the way things were phrased, and a lot of times these narrators would sound like newscasters to me on the BBC. And I thought, huh? That's not how that character would have said that. And then the story, oh, I had so many problems with this story. There's insta-love, there tended to be a lot of situations where a character was established but then would turn and behave in a completely unexpected way. I don't like it in books when that happens. When you have a character who is maybe fierce and independent and yet turns around and is all sappy and like gooey in a situation where it is called for them to be strong. And there is a nice plot twist, so I think the story has a lot of merit, but the way it's told and the way that the characters are drawn they just didn't fly for me. So I ended up giving that one 1 star. The Crown's Game is by Evelyn Skye, and it is narrated on audio by Steve West. Normally I really like Steve West, and I liked him for part of this, but my problem with the narration here is that I would have directed it differently. I need to be a casting director, a regular director. You know, I have all these opinions about narration now because I listen to so many audiobooks. This is a story about 2 magicians trying to compete for the position of the king's enchanter. And only one can win because of the way that the magic is distributed, and it's set in a fantasy Russia. And so those elements were nice. It had some nice side characters, and the magic was beautiful, the imagery. But I didn't like the way one of the characters behaved. I thought he was too soft. I thought he would have been a little more gritty than that, especially based on his background. And I think some of the reason that he wasn't was because of the way Steve West voiced him. Nice ending. Nice, interesting ending. So it was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I don't know where Skye is going to take the series. I think it stands on its own, but, you know, if she picks up the story from there, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. So I gave that one 3 stars. Where Futures End by Parker Peevyhouse is narrated by a full cast of people, and they include Katie Koster, Caitlin Davies, Emily Wu Zeller, Will Damron, Andrew Eiden. Of those, I really liked Emily Wu Zeller, Will Damron, and Andrew Eiden. I did not like Caitlin Davies, and I don't remember enough about Katie Koster to know whether I liked her or didn't. Caitlin Davies is a good YA narrator, but not for me. I don't like the way she pronounces some words because I think she tends to speak that way because it's trendy. And I don't like that. I don't like an affected speech like that. I just think that it doesn't ring true to me. It feels very dishonest and very like I'm supposed to be impressed by that, and I'm not. So, yeah, that didn't work. This was a weird book. It was a weird book. It was kind of like a string of short stories that all culminate in a final short story that's supposed to kind of tie the whole thing together. And, you know, have you ever been in a conversation where someone is talking and you're listening to what they're saying, but it isn't making any sense because you feel like they're talking in circles? That's the way the ending of this book was. It was like, it just didn't make any sense to me. And I felt like I got all the things they were talking about, all the pieces, but they didn't fit into the puzzle the right way. It did not make sense. It just felt like it went in a circle, and I just didn't get it. So I didn't like it. I just didn't. I gave it 2 stars because I think that it's moderately well written, but the story was just craziness. I picked up the first 2 books in the Others series by Anne Bishop, and they are Written in Red and Murder of Crows, and they're narrated on audio by Alexandra Harris. But I learned pretty early on that I don't like Alexandra Harris's narration. It just isn't right. One of the characters is just all wrong. The way she does him is just, the pitch is all wrong. So overall, these were okay. I liked the first one better than the second one. The first one I gave 4 stars, which was Written in Red. Murder of Crows I gave 3 stars. This story isn't drawing me in like I thought it would. It's paranormal about a group called the Others who are shapeshifters who have been around since the dawn of time, and then humans, and it's all about the interaction between the two. And so you have some murder mystery going on, you've got a political tension going on, you've got kind of a political group that's trying to gain control, and it's suspect as to how they're doing it and whether they will succeed. And in the middle is Meg, who is the main character, and she's kind of a bridge between the 2 species, as it were. I think I will continue with the series, but I'll have to read them as ebooks, which makes me not want to pick them up as readily as I would another audiobook. I picked up a couple of Carrie Vaughn's short stories as podcasts, which I think is fabulous. These are online magazines who do podcasts, and the short stories were published in their magazines. So the first of those was Sunstone Sphere, and that was narrated on audio by Blaine Foley. And the narration was great. I really liked it. I thought, I don't know if that person narrates books for a living, but she was really good. I really enjoyed the narration. I thought she just did it all right. And the story is rather unremarkable. I think this particular short story would fit better within the context of a bigger, like a novel. And as it was just too short of a slice of a piece of something that it didn't really have a point. It's about 2 girls who leave a tribe and go on a very long journey to get to a new place where they know that life will be better for them. And so it has some elements of feminism in the way women are treated. It is very Native American / prehistoric in its treatment of mysticism. And overall, it was a good story. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars, but I think, like I say, it would have worked within the context of a bigger story. It would have made more sense because you got to the end and you thought, what was the story that she was trying to tell here? So, yeah. The other one was called Amaryllis, and it is narrated on audio by Gabrielle Decoeur, and I really liked it. It is in a dystopian world where there's a woman who is the head of a ship that goes out and fishes. It is very specific as to the quotas that they have to meet based on the population. And it becomes a story that's all about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. This is what Carrie Vaughn is great at. She can condense this idea into a short story that really makes sense and is really good. So yeah, I really like this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I just thought she wrapped it up nicely, and it didn't feel like it ended too soon. Theobolus Gate is book 2 in the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemison, and I think that the strength for me of this book is the narration by Robin Miles, because Robin Miles captures the mood and the atmosphere of this book so expertly. N.K. Jemison has a very direct, almost blunt writing style. Her characters are very no-nonsense. This world is very much a place where you can't afford to be overly sentimental. So her characters never are. And the way that she handles the dialogue and just the connection, one scene to the next, is so unadorned. And Miles can capture that just so well. She does a lot of accents, which were wonderful and very appropriate, because these characters are from all over this world. And it kind of carried the theme from the first book on with regard to what the ultimate end game is for some of these characters. In the first book, there were 3 characters who culminate into kind of the end. Is you end up finding out things that I'm not going to tell you because I would spoil it. But in the second book, one of the characters, her daughter, is very instrumental in the plot. And so in the second book, we follow her. And great story. And ends in a way that, you know, we're all dying for the next book. So I really liked it. I really like this series. And I'm really shocked that I do, because it's not my thing. But apparently it is my thing. So I gave it 4 stars. Spin by Robert Charles Wilson is narrated on audio by Scott Brick. Now this was an interesting book. It is the first in a series, and it won the Hugo Award in 2006. And I can see why. This was fascinating because the synopsis doesn't really tell you much at all about the book. All it says is that there are 3 main characters, and they are children outside one evening, and there's kind of a blink, and the sky vanishes. No more stars. It's just blank. And so the sun does come up the next day, and they're all worried at first that it won't. But things go along, and as the society there figures out what has happened, that's when it gets interesting. Scott Brick is his usual wonderful self in his narration. He is just so expert at subtle distinctions between the characters. He does that with the way that he voices them in the expression and the way they talk, rather than the pitch for the individual, like male and female characters. I liked the narration. I liked the book. It's adult sci-fi, and it goes places that you don't expect for it to go, and it does things by the end that you're thinking, wow, this is so cool. So pretty interesting. Just the plot twists that go on in it and the way that it all gets revealed is really good. I got a good dose of time travel with Just One Damn Thing After Another by Jodie Taylor. This is book 1 in the Chronicles of St. Mary's, and it is narrated by Zara Ramm. Zara Ramm is a Brit who captured this whole thing so well. The book is full of that dry wit that is just really fun to read, and it just surprises me, makes me laugh out loud because it catches me off guard, and so I love the narration. I don't think it could have been better. This is all about a main character who has a PhD in history, and she gets recruited by an organization to come work with them, and they are a time travel organization. And they are fighting against kind of a splinter group of their organization that is trying to go back and change things. The time travel element is handled really well. And she deals with paradox really nicely, and in a way that makes sense, and so it doesn't confuse you. And there isn't plot hole after plot hole after plot hole. No, it's none of that. And so combine that with the historical element and then the wit. It was just perfect all the way around. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to get on with the series. I think there are 8 books in the series, and there's a novella between each of the books. So it's a real treat. So yeah, I'm looking forward to moving on with that one, and I gave it 4 stars. I don't usually choose to review middle grade books, but I got a request to review The Inquisitor's Tale by Adam Gidwitz. There is a lot of buzz about this book, and it's all deserved. It is narrated by an entire cast. It is set in the Middle Ages, and it follows 3 main characters and their adventures, and it shone a light on the Middle Ages that I never would have expected. And the way it is told is just delightful. And, you know, I loved it. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and it was a real treat to get to listen to. And the highlight of the month for me was The Forgetting by Sharon Cameron. I listened to this on audio. It's narrated by Therese Plummer. She just does it right. I like her inflections. I like her phrasing. I think she is able to capture characters really well. She does a nice range of pitch for male and female characters, and just all around, I really enjoyed her narration. And I think that's probably part of why my opinion of this book is so high. This book explores what it would be like if you lost all your memories and you didn't know anything about who you were. It's set in a dystopian community where this happens once every 12 years. During the time of the forgetting, it's about 3 days when people just kind of go crazy and do whatever they want because they're not going to remember it. So kind of all hell breaks loose. I was so impressed by this story. I think that premise, that idea of examining who you are if you don't have any memories of yourself or your past. How does that affect the way that you view the rest of your life? How do you know what you're good at? How do you know where you've been and how things have changed you and affected you? And I mean, it kind of takes the tack that maybe you're looking at something in a certain way, and maybe that's because of something that happened in the past that you just don't remember. So really interesting stuff. So I had loved this, and I gave it 5 stars. So those are all the sci-fi and fantasy books that I had the pleasure, mostly, of reading in September. If you've read any of them or you have an opinion of them, please let me know. I'd love to talk with you about that in comments. And that's it for now for me. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.